welcome back to the dresser build. So what we're going to do today is we're going to finish drilling the holes for mounting the molding onto our project, and we're going to glue and screw our molding on today. All right, so with that said, let's get to it. So I've got my countersink bit and my drill bit. What I want to do is I want to countersink first evenly on this surface. I would do maybe 4 holes for each side molding piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the drill on its side as close as I can to the corner. And I want to drill a countersinked hole that is deep enough so that when I put my screw head on it, it goes below the surface. So we get the screw to test the hole. So we'll be using 1¼ standard screws with Phillips head. So that goes below the surface, so that's perfect. Move to the next position. Test. And then finally, right on the end. Right. Now they don't all have to be in alignment with each other. They can be at different heights, because again, all we're doing is we're just trying to pull the molding onto the side of our project. Right. So once it goes into countersink part, so it's flush, there'll be a little bit of screw thread pulling our piece on to our dresser. So now that we have our sides countersunk, I'm going to take my drill and drill all the way through the backside. Now keep in mind, before we go to glue these on, we are going to need to sand our side just to make sure that there's nothing sticking up from when we go to drill our side pieces here. Right? So I'll put it in the center of my countersink again. Right? And there we go. Now we're going to do the same to the opposite side. Again, the same rule applies in this class. If you do it to one side, you must do it to the other. So this should have already been pre-finished. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back with some 80 grit sandpaper. And I'm going to knock down the screw holes on the back side, just to make sure I don't have anything pushing up my molding before I do it. It's also a good practice to sand before you glue, because again, you're opening up the grain itself. Also, you need to make sure that you blow this off so that the sawdust doesn't mix with the glue and reduce the bond. So again, you're going to sand, clean up any marks, glue, finger stains, oil stains, get it nice and fresh, blow it off, and then we're ready to glue. So let's blow this off and get to gluing. So now that everything's been set, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one side molding and work to the next. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I have my side molding lined up, I want it perfectly to this corner here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread the glue on the surface, right, from edge to edge. Line it up, and then clamp it on the front. Once I got the front set and the edge is perfectly aligned, I'm going to slowly work my way to the back, and then also clamp back here, making sure that I have good attachment on the back of the project. Right? Lastly, again, you want to make sure it's flush going from one edge to the other. If not, what's going to happen is it's going to look weird, or it's actually going to open up the molding in the front. Or it's not the molding, the miter joint in the front. So I'm going to take my side piece, take my glue bottle, and then spread the glue out. Now, what I'm going to do is, again, I'm wearing gloves just so I don't get it all over my hands. You can use what's called a glue spreader to spread out the glue out to the edges. Now again, what you're looking for is a surface that's clear enough so you can see the wood grain. So I can still see the wood grain, but there are no dry spots on any part of the surface. Right? Once it's all been spread out, inspect it one more time, one more pass. And we are all set. So I'm going to line this up. Grab my bar clamp. Now, if you're working with a partner, I would strongly suggest at this point you ask for help. Get an extra set of hands. It is a little tedious trying to work both the bar clamp and hold the workpiece. So again, ask for help, especially in this step. Right, so I got lined up flush. I'm going to take the clamp and just start tightening. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to put the clamp ball as close to the edge as possible, so I get good clamping pressure right on the edge. So check one more time, almost there. Again, take your time, make sure everything's lined up at this stage, because again, once we've glued and clamped this on, there's no going back. Okay? So it's nice and flush here. I got a gap at the back, so I'm going to take my bar clamp, line up the back, and slowly start squeezing that shut. Okay. Once it's closed, what I can do now is I can come in now and start screwing the molding on. So I'm going to replace my drill bits on my cordless screw for a Phillips head driver bit, and I'm going to start driving in my Phillips head screw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click it over to the screw function and turn the transmission down so that when I'm screwing, I don't accidentally split the wood on my side piece. All right? So I'm going to grab my screws. Start working this in. All right, that's one. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to move the clamp so that I can get the other screw in. So I move the clamp up and out of the way, insert my screw, come over top. There we go. Then I'm going to try to come over to the back side real quick. Just move the clamp just a little bit down. Keep that closure, but I'm not in the way of the screw. Alright, now that all the screws are in, theoretically I could take the clamps off, but it's just good practice. If you see any gaps, move your clamps over and lock it down tight. In this case, I do see a gap between the back edge of this. So I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put as much pressure on the top edge of this so it closes. All right. Once it's closed, then I can move on to the next piece. So this top edge wasn't closing very well, so what I did was I came in and dropped in a hand screw just to squeeze as much of my molding on. Again, this will vary depending on your project. I'm working with a project that's been sitting for a year, so it's not exactly square. So again, before we move on to the next side, we definitely need to make sure no gaps are present as this is being mounted. We can always go back and tighten the screws, but again, the screws are just an aid right now to hold our molding on. The clamps are doing the majority of the work. Right? So now we'll move on to the other side of the molding. So again, I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to spread the glue nice and thin. And glue and screw it. Again, just to refresh, I want to spread the glue nice and thin so I have a nice translucent surface so I can see the wood grain, but there's still a little bit of the yellow from the wood glue still on the surface. Go. A little bit right there. And now we can start lining it up. So that now that my side moldings are glued, screwed, and cured, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach my front molding. All right. What I'm going to try to do is there's a little bit of a gap. I'm going to take an I-beam bar clamp, come across the face, squeeze the moldings together, and then to use 2 hand screws to squeeze those moldings down together. Specifically, I want to close these miter joints. All right. In addition, I'm only going to be able to reach 1 screw. That's fine. All right. I'd rather this glue and cure with a tight closed miter, and then come back and screw it later. All right. So with that said, let's start spreading our glue. Just like before, we want a nice translucent layer going all the way across my piece. All right. What I'm also going to add is I want glue on the miters now, because I want those to be attached, bonded by glue. So I'm going to spread those onto my miter joints, make sure all surfaces are clearly covered. A nice coating of glue. Alright. And what's nice about water-based glue is that if you have very, very, very small gaps, in some cases it can expand out to close those gaps, because again, the water causes the wood to swell. So we're just going to make sure we have a nice clear coating so that you get good closure across the workpiece. Make sure your miters are nicely coated. If they're too dry, they won't stick too well. Right. Now that it's coated, line up my miter. Make sure it's nice and lined up on top. I'm going to come in with my I-beam bar clamp. I'm going to squeeze it together. And make sure that the pressure is right on the top. That's closed. Now I got to squeeze it down with my hand screws. Now, one thing I didn't mention is that I have these hand screws already preset to the width that I need in order to close this miter. So normally what you would do is you would count how many revolutions it would take in order to close it perfectly across that surface, and then all you have to do is come in and lock it down. Put all my pressure on that back one once it's closed. Closed on this side. A little bit gap on this side. Let's see if we can adjust it. Just gotta squeeze this one down. Now I'm going to screw the center screw because I can reach it, and then we'll put that. And we'll put that aside for 24 hours.